Well, Ukraine's allied countries were sending aid to Kiev. Unmanned aerial vehicles such as Bayraktar TB2 from Turkey were delivered to Kiev and started to be used. The Russian army had deployed in convoys around Kiev, and they wanted to control the region with a major offensive. The convoy grew longer and longer each day, with a convoy of tanks and armored vehicles about 60-70 km long. The reason for this was that the first attempt to control Kiev was thwarted by Ukrainian forces, which surprised Moscow. Later on, Moscow wanted to show its strength with this convoy and to advance with a very large force, but they realized too late that Soviet tactics would not work in the new era. The Kiev army inflicted great damage on the Russian convoy, especially with Turkish drones. Russian convoys deployed around Kiev were deployed on narrow and mountainous roads. The unmanned aerial vehicles attacked and first hit the armored vehicles at the beginning and end of the convoy, restricting the movements of the Russian convoy. Then the fuel tankers in the convoy were destroyed. The Russian army had never suffered such heavy losses before, and the large convoy was withdrawn by Moscow. The drone's electromagnetic warfare system prevented the Russian air defense systems from protecting the convoy, but the Russian army still hasn't learned from this. It is very dangerous to move convoys in such an asymmetric war. Also, the Ukrainian army now has a lot of drones and unmanned aerial vehicles. In the early days of the war, the Russian army had a lot of armored vehicles and tanks. Now it is much less. In the same way, Ukraine had huge shortcomings in the early days of the war, but now the Ukrainian army has a strong military inventory that is tailored to the ongoing war. I would say that there are still shortcomings, but it is impossible to compare with the first days of the war. As the MiV Marines showed in their video, armored vehicles and groups of soldiers and convoys can be targeted by drones in a very simple and cost-effective way. The repulse of the main strike force of the Russian forces and the organization of this attack by drones has led to the mobilization of Ukrainian forces. Ukrainian forces began advancing along the KK line towards the center line of Pgreb, and Ukrainian forces allegedly captured Olivka, Mariva, Malalia, Stara Serena, and Nova Serena, northwest of Suda. However, no official statement has been made, so it is not a definitive and verified report. There is also another statement from Russia. The Russian Defense Ministry reported that 46 Ukrainian drones were attacked on the night of December 7th, 8. There was no statement from the Ukrainian army on the subject, but the Russian Defense Ministry claimed that all drones were shot down. I will update you again when an official statement is made, but this is what Russia usually says. I do not think that all of these drones were shot down because the success rate of drone attacks is very high. We can understand this success rate from the attacks on Russia's fuel system. It is stated that 33% of the fuel facilities that Russia supplies fuel to were directly attacked. This is clearly causing fuel disruptions, but the Russian Defense Ministry denies this attack. After every Ukrainian drone strike, you can judge for yourself whether these attacks are true or not. The second problem for Moscow is sanctions and breakdowns. These fuel plants are operating at a very high cost because of the sanctions. It is also known that many refineries have been shut down or stopped working due to export restrictions and high debts. As you may recall, Nori Refinery, one of the largest refineries in Russia, announced on November 20th that it had stopped working. On top of these problems, the attacks by Ukrainian drones completely prevent Moscow from solving them. We have been saying the same thing since the first day of the Ukraine-Russia war. Every day of the war, is very costly for Russia and Ukraine. And in addition to the cost, the losses are very high. We hope that this war will be resolved at the table in a short time. As we approach the end of another video, I would like to give you a short reminder and end this video. Our team works tirelessly for more than 12 hours every day to bring you the best news. If you would like to show your appreciation, please click on the Super Thank You button. Your donations allow us to expand our reach and improve the quality of our news. You can also support us by liking the video and leaving a comment. I wish you all a good day and see you soon. The war has shifted to the second period, with Russian troops attacking in convoys. As you may recall, Ukrainian forces successfully repulsed Russian convoys in the past days. In addition, many Russian armored vehicles and 72 tanks were destroyed. The aim of the Russian army in this process is to organize a massive attack by gathering a large number of soldiers and military equipment in KK. Moscow wants to drive Ukrainian forces out of KK in one go. This is exactly why North Korean units are in KK. By keeping North Korean troops on strategic fronts, Moscow is trying to build an army composed largely of Russian forces. As this number has increased, there have been changes in both the shape and number of attacks by Russian units. But, as I've said in previous videos, this strategy has not succeeded since the beginning of the war, and it is unlikely to succeed from now on. You will understand why better later in the video. According to reports published today, Mykol Marets repelled Russian attacks in the KK region. The destruction of the Russian convoys that I mentioned in the first part was also carried out by the Molive Marines. The attack by the Russian parachute unit was successfully repulsed, and one armored vehicle and Russian infantry groups were targeted by drones. According to the published report, a bunker containing Russian soldiers and military equipment was destroyed in this way. Fighting in the same and nearby areas has been going on for about 10 days. Russian forces are again moving in convoys and going on the offensive, but remember the first days of the war. The Ukrainian army had huge shortages of troops, especially huge shortages of military equipment. They had almost no artillery systems, drones, rocket systems, or ammunition. During this period, Moscow said that Kiev would be controlled within 3 days. With this, the Russian army advanced directly to Kiev through Belarus and the Bavas line with an incredibly fast progress. But Kiev, with the right decision, decided to withdraw its soldiers and a small number of military equipment from non-critical regions and protect the capital, Kiev, the main region.